Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Tabletop Engineer. I'm Jim, the Tabletop Engineer, and in this episode, I am going to make a small prototype model of a much larger piece of terrain that I will be building after I make this video. Normally, when I go into my gaming store to play a war game against an opponent, the gaming store I go to has these shelves across the wall that have just tons of scattered terrain. And by scattered terrain, I mean pieces that you can pick up, put down on the table, and move them around wherever you want to place them. And normally that's just a great way to play, and I always enjoy it. But every now and then I look at the table and it's a mishmash of like painting styles and terrain scales and things like that. And it got me thinking that what I would really like to create is a piece of fixed terrain. Something that everything is glued down, that I can pick up off the table and hang on the wall or put on a shelf. But when I'm ready to play, I take it off, slap it down, and boom, we're ready to play. No terrain set up. Now, for something that size, and we're talking like, 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet or 3 feet by 3 feet, I don't want to just jump in and start making something random. I have an idea in my head of what this will look like, but I'm not 100% confident that when it's built to game scale, that all the angles will look right, that players will be able to access areas they need to move miniatures and stuff like that. So what I decided to do was to do what's called fast prototyping. In the manufacturing industry, a lot of times people will just make a smaller scale version of something out of whatever tools and materials they have on hand, just to give them an idea of what the bigger version will look like. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. I have been sketching out a 2.5 by 2.5 foot piece of terrain, 30 inches by 30 inches, because I can buy a 30-inch piece of foam square at my hardware store. It also turns out that one of the games I really want to be playing using this type of terrain is a game called Relic Blade, and the standard tabletop size for it is 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet. So it's a win-win if I make this. So in this video, I'm going to move the camera down to the work table, and I'm going to show you my sketches, and then I'm going to take those sketches and I'm going to make an actual three-dimensional object, small scale, just to see what it looks like. And if I'm happy with it, I'll move on and make the bigger project. Now, I do want to apologize. Part of this video, the sound quality is a little wonky. I'm not quite sure what was going on with my microphone, but it does fix itself later. So again, apologies for the weird sound of my voice in the early part of the video. Let's get to the tabletop and let's get started on making this prototype. Right. I started with just some basic graph paper, and what I did was I actually made a blank area, square. This is going to be 30 inches by 30 inches. Why that size? Two reasons. One of the games that I'm really wanting to use this with is a game called Relic Blade, and the standard size terrain table is 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, which is 30 inches. Also, it just so happens that Home Depot sells squares of foam in 30-inch by 30-inch sizes. So it just seems like that's a sign from above that I am supposed to do a 30-inch by 30-inch. So what I did was I sketched this out on standard graph paper, and then I scanned this and printed out a bunch of copies so that I wouldn't have to continue to draw the 30-inch by 30-inch. I could just start from here. Printed out a handful of those and started doing some sketches. This is a mess, all right, but basically I want to have a 3-level piece of terrain. You're looking at it from the top. So there'll be this unusual shaped piece at the top, and then beneath it is a second level, and then beneath that is the lower 30-foot or 30-inch by 30-inch level. So you're looking at all 3 levels, top to bottom here. But again, this is two-dimensional. Very, very difficult to see it unless you have that kind of mind. I just can't picture what it's going to look like here. I need to visualize it in 3 dimensions. So what I'm going to do is make this into a small scale prototype. Now, what I've done here is I've sort of refined this sketch with some dashed lines. So I'm starting at level 2 because level 3 is pretty much defined. And when I say level 3, I'm talking about the bottom level. I'm counting top to bottom. So level 3 will be this 30-inch by 30-inch square that goes all around. Level 2 is going to be these 2 larger triangles. The corners have been cut. There's going to be some bridges from section to section. And then the dashed line in here is going to be that unusual shaped top piece. But I made it dashed so that I could sort of, again, visualize what I'm going for here. But again, this is not enough to help me. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get some chipboard, and I'm going to actually make a small scale version. It will be to scale with my drawing here. So for instance, this 30 inches right here corresponds to 8 inches on the mat. So when I'm done, I'm going to have this 8 by 8 model with 3 levels, and also the levels are going to help me to determine the height of each level. I'm not really sure yet until I get there what I'm going to be doing, but this will hopefully help me make some of those decisions. So let me get some chipboard and we'll get cutting. All right, now that I've got all the pieces cut out, according to my picture here, these are going to be placed 3/4 of an inch from this edge and 1/2 an inch from this edge. So I just need to make some marks all the way around. All right, so I have the basic prototype of the floor levels, and I've got a few little, the minis put on here, as you can see, just to give an idea of, scale. This is not an unreasonable distance for two minis to be apart to shoot. This line of sight is probably not going to happen. It's kind of hard to tilt it without losing everything. But keep in mind, these floors will have lots of scatter terrain. They'll have columns and statues and rails and other debris that will block line of sight. But so far, I'm liking what I see. And when I look down in here, there's plenty of space for an opponent to move down in there. The only problem I can foresee is measuring underneath here. But a lot of times people use these plastic things instead of a ruler. You can put it in there and guide. But overall, I think the pain in getting access down under here is probably going to be overruled by just the fun of having something like this to run around and play on. Now, what I want to do next is I want to add connecting walkways and staircases to just kind of see if it's too much or not enough. Apologies, I lost the video for when I glued these 4 bridges on. I just used a piece of 1-inch tall chipboard, scored it so I could fold it to make a beam, and glued it on a little 1/2 by 3/4 inch piece. 4 of those. Now what I want to do is get the staircases that will lead up to here. This is why I wanted the prototype, so I could look and visually see, if I put a staircase here and here, what does that do versus say here and here. I'm going to play around with it. Also, there has to be a way for players to get from level 3, the bottom floor, up to here. What I'm thinking is cutting a hole in here. I should have done this prior. But there would be a staircase here, 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 and here that lead downwards. But again, I'm getting a prototype so I can figure these things out. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go look at this from all angles, do some brainstorming, create some more sketches, and we'll come back and add some more detail to it. This is a perfect example of why I wanted to prototype this. All right, so after examining it, I came up with a few issues. One, I think the distance here is too short. In inches, this is 1 inch, or in height here, which is 4 squares on the graph paper, which equals 20 feet. This is 20 feet of height. However, I want to increase this. I want to go up just about, I don't know, this is 1 inch. I want to go up to 1.5 inches, which would be 6 inches or 20 or 30 feet, a 30 foot tall ceiling. And then I'll do this for 3 more layers, 1, 2, and 3. Now watch this. This was the original setup. You'll notice I tore it off. It's just not exciting, and it's only at the current height, it's only 8 inches tall. This would be 4 inches, this layer would be 4 inches. So it's only 8 inches tall, which is the height of this square pretty much. This is 7, but 8 inches is right here. This is not a very exciting terrain board, in my opinion. I want it to go higher. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make 2 of these, one here. They'll crisscross, and I want to make an octagonal, like a stop sign shaped, top part. So the first thing I need to do is I need to add some height to this, which, remember, I'm just going to add a, this is 1 inch, I'm going to add a 1/2 inch. So to do that, just to simulate it, I've got these little squares here, which if I do like that, that's about right. Now granted, I'm not going to break these off from this piece and raise them up, although I guess I could. That would probably not be a bad idea. Scratch that. I'm going to start over. I'll time lapse this. I'm going to break these off, raise them up a 1/2 inch, raise this up a 1/2 inch, then put another one on top. All right, now I'm getting closer to what I'm looking for, which is higher ceilings and more space for miniatures to move around. Also, I wanted it to be taller. By increasing the height here to 1.5 inches, the total here is 1.5 inches, 5.5 inches, well, 4.5 inches. In game space, this will be about 18 inches tall. So, a good 18 inches tall on the table. That would be the top layer right here. That is really what I was going for. Now, the next step I've got to do is figure out where I'm going to put stairs, or maybe ladders just don't seem right. This was going to be sort of a monument. Like, I think I'm putting crypts here and things around. This would be like, deep inside a tomb where there'd be two tombs and two tombs and maybe two or one and one. So it's going to look very, very regal, very royal, and ladders aren't going to cut it. So it's going to require staircases. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a break. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go and look at where I can put staircases that will be beneficial to both players, because you want everything to be sort of symmetrical. And if this is a 4-player game, it's got to look symmetrical somewhat, no matter which side you start on. Of course, all the debris and stuff that will be on here, we'll have to play with that and make sure it's fair, but I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm going to take a break, going to examine it from all different angles and try to figure out where to put some stairs. Now comes the fun part, adding some detail work. Nothing fancy, but just to liven it up a little bit, makes it easier for me to visualize it on the table. So I have a lot of walkways that go nowhere, but the idea is that they would extend off into the distance, but we're dealing with this portion of the play area. Have some down here too. Here are the staircases. Now again, I'm just making this up as I go because I don't know yet how I'll make the staircases. I probably want to make them in such a way that the miniatures can be placed on them. So that will determine, the angle. This may not be the actual angle. It may go out further, or it may go, more vertical. Probably not vertical, but probably more at an angle. But these are just placeholders to represent stairs. And you can see I have a center stair that goes up to a walkway that connects these two. And then the top portion has a staircase on all 4 sides. All right, I think I am done with my prototype. It has enough detail to give me an idea that I think this is going to look pretty slick. Let me spin it around here for you. So it has 4 floors technically, 1, 2, 3, 4. The highest one has some pillars and a sarcophagus up here, staircases all the way around, another sarcophagus here and here. These levels will have walkways that branch off and go nowhere. Same with the 2 below here. Now down here I've got coffins in there that are sort of angled. Now here's the thing about a prototype. This is just kind of what I'm shooting for. As I build the large version, things will change. I will hit problems and I'll discover that, maybe these stairs, I just didn't calculate them properly, and I'll have to revisit it or come up with a solution. The idea here was I just wanted to build in miniature something that I plan on building in large scale, just to make sure that it looked okay. And in my mind, even though it's not painted, this is what I'm going for. Now this is going to be 18 inches tall to this floor right here when it's done. It's going to be a nice big piece of terrain that's all fixed. It's fixed terrain that I can pick up and put it on the shelf and then drop it down, and we're ready to play. And I want to make sure that it's durable enough. It'll uphold, it'll hold up to a lot of movement and stuff. So there may be extra columns that I put in for reinforcement. The stairs, will probably have some backing or something to give them strength. You just never know until you actually start making something. But I hope you liked this video, because I wanted to give you an idea of what fast prototyping is. Now, granted, this is nothing like what the professionals do out in the world with manufacturing and stuff. But the idea here is, if you've got a grand, this grand big idea, don't bite off more than you can chew. Maybe take it back a step and make a smaller version of it just to see what's involved. Now, just making this little bit and cutting all this tells me it's going to be a lot of cutting. It's going to be a lot of terrain, like making the flooring. It's not going to be flat like this. It's going to have color and texture and maybe patterns and things. I've got a few days that I'm just going to look online for some examples of flooring and stuff and see what I can do. My idea is that this will probably be very dwarven in nature. If not dwarven, at least, a lot of stone, everything carved, as much as possible carved out of stone, and just sort of a place of honor where people would be buried, and unfortunately now where battles are going to take place. There are plenty of places in here to hide, block line of sight. There are also places to put treasures and special items that might be objectives and things like that. But just keep in mind, 18 inches tall, 30 inches this way, 30 inches this way. So it's going to be a good size structure when I'm done, and I'm really looking forward to making it.